Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, mate. How's it going?
Pretty well, pretty well. I just got back last night from the East Coast, so I'm a little jet lagged, but I'm doing okay.
So you're in California, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
So whereabouts in California?
In Pasadena.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
it's what about 11 a.m. there? Is it maybe?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Just
So
trying.
we're about 8 hours ahead here in the UK. So it's been a long day. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
well, thanks
I
for
hope.
taking time. Thanks for. I mean, I didn't realise you were travelling because I got the thing last week saying, would you like to talk to Brendan after seeing the film?
Yeah.
I've got to talk about this crazy, bonkers, wonderful film in just a few minutes. Honest to God, I loved it, but I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So, but thanks for taking the time because you must be
Of
like all
course.
over the place at the moment because I know you've been here, there, and my God, everywhere.
Yeah, it sure feels like it. It's definitely it seems to be at least travel wise calming down, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I've been fucking totally thrilled that it's been getting all this attention, but I'm definitely ready to have like a week where I don't leave my house, or at least leave like the state or country. So I'm no problem at all.
All
I
right,
had just flown back for to see my family, so it
cool.
wasn't that one at least wasn't VelociPastor related.
Before I talk about the film, let's just do a bit of the old sort of intro bit. So, influences in terms of, I mean, did you always want to be a director, or did you try acting and or whatever, or was it direction that you
Yeah.
wanted to do?
I pretty much knew it was directing.
Yeah,
It was sort of like it was one of those things where I just started off making films with my friends, like in the backyard, just to do it for fun. And I think I realized pretty quickly that I enjoyed it more than anyone else. And so it was just a fun thing to do. And then when I was like 13 or 14, I saw and I had always loved movies, but when I was 13 or 14, I saw Reservoir Dogs.
right.
And
Wow.
it
Okay.
it kind of gave me the vernacular for what I actually wanted to do. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I want to be that dude." Like I want to direct movies.
Yeah.
And so from then on out, it was I was dead set. I knew that if I gave myself sort of a backup plan, I'd probably take it at some
Yeah.
point. So very purposefully, I cultivated no skills. But no, I did honestly like. I just always knew that was going to be it.
Yeah.
So
So who
yeah.
you mentioned Tarantino, obviously. I want to talk about Tarantino in a moment because there is a kind of influence in VelociPastor who, in terms of Grindhouse and Death Proof,
Oh,
is my
absolutely.
favorite Tarantino film. Death Proof. Death Proof is one of those
Yeah.
films that was kind of like I think underappreciated for Tarantino, but I just love that feel. And the opening
Yeah.
credits has kind of got a very kind of grindhousey Tarantino
Mhm.
kind of effect. I don't know if you would agree or
Oh, absolutely, yes.
yeah,
Like it was well, because we made originally we made The Lost Pastor as a short, right?
yeah,
In 2011, and that one directly, I did it because I saw Grindhouse.
right,
I think it shifted a little bit when we ended up doing the final film, but definitely at least the first trailer, it's like, oh yeah, it's Tarantino and Rodriguez all day. That's just what I was trying to emulate. That and there's you probably know it, but there's this great site called Trailers from Hell, where they just
yes,
take. What's up?
I've seen the sign. I've had a
Yeah.
great.
And so for some reason, just in that season of my life, I was obsessed with Trailers from Hell. So I was just watching a bunch of trailers, and yeah. So, but yeah, in terms of the final film, there's definitely Tarantino in there as well. I mean, I don't think there ever totally isn't in what I do.
Yeah.
It's funny how you just sort of fold those influences into yourself, and eventually it just sort of becomes part of your vocabulary as a filmmaker.
So who else would be influences in terms of directors or filmmakers in general?
For sure, Edgar Wright.
Oh,
Edgar
Shaun
Wright
of the
is one of
Dead.
my
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, man. Yeah,
I adore his work. And there's something in the rhythm of his editing that I'm always really envious of. I don't remember who his editor is, but he or she is phenomenally good. And I love the rhythm of his movies, and he's very funny.
Yeah.
It's he to me is a very weirdly underappreciated director. Like, he's never gonna win an Oscar, but Homeboy has been churning out like quietly the best films of the last 10 years.
I was going to say, I mean, he did the Cornetto trilogy, didn't he? Shaun of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
He did Hot Fuzz, at the World's End.
Mm-hmm.
Did he do Ant-Man as well? I think he did. He did Ant-Man.
He was going to.
Yeah.
It was like one of those weird studio things where he did like all the prep work.
Right. Yeah.
I've never seen Ant-Man to this day as a very, very small sort of protest. In film you vote with your dollar, so I was just sort of like, yeah, I'm not voting for that one. It might be good. I don't know.
It's fine. It's a fine film. I mean, I'm a bit of a Marvel freak, so the Thor thing on here, but my first love in terms of, well, not my first love, but one of my early loves was the B movie, was the kind of like the blaxploitation stuff of the 70s, all the Pam Grier stuff and all that stuff, Shaft and all that stuff, and also the schlock horror stuff and everything. So when I'll tell you a story about VelociPastor in just a second, but VelociPastor I saw last week, and I don't know what I was expecting, but seriously, I laughed my socks off at seeing through it, and honestly, God, it's just a great, enjoyable film, with an absolutely bonkers, mad as a box of frogs concept explained to people. And I don't mean that as a kind of criticism or to be patronising, but it is. It is. Somebody told when I heard, I thought, what? Go on, so tell people the kind of basic synopsis of VelociPastor.
The basic synopsis. The easiest way you can sum it up is that it's a documentary about.
It's an autobiography.
It's about a good guy priest who loses his parents, goes to China to sort of spend some time away from everything and find himself. And when he's there, he mysteriously inherits a power to turn into a velociraptor, which he uses.
We've all been there.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, like Tuesday again, right? but he uses it to fight crime and ninjas, and that is my brain.
See, the thing is, and again, I'll just move in slightly away. A friend of mine told me about this film a couple of weeks ago. I know it's been around a while, but a friend of mine, I'd kind of just missed it. And a friend of mine rang me up and said, I've just seen this crazy, bonkers, funny film, low budget, really good, called VelociPastor. I thought he meant pasta as in, like, it was a film about tagliatelle or something, like that. So I went, really? Because, this priest becomes a priest. What would you So, to be honest, I think you missed a trick, because, if it had been a tagliatelle that turned into a velociraptor, you'd have been...
It could have been. It could have been. It would be like rubber, but even more esoteric.
So when he said, no, a pastor, as in a priest, I went, oh, right, okay. As if that kind of then made total sense.
As if it made sense.
Well, that's all right then.
Yeah, of course.
So 2011, you say it was a short. So how the hell did you come up with the idea? I mean, it's like I say, autobiographical. But in what way? So where did it come from? Where the hell did this come from? This seed of madness.
Yeah. So it's funny. It came from an autocorrect on my phone. I was just texting. I was in film school and I was texting a friend about like dinosaurs, and it autocorrected Velociraptor to VelociPastor, and I was just like, like I said, I had just seen Grindhouse. I was thinking about a lot of those movies, Trailers from Hell and all of that, and my only thought was, sounds like a dope movie. So it literally, when you're writing and stuff, you have to be open to the weirdest, most out of left field stuff imaginable. So I wrote it, like I said, just as the short film, never thinking I would expand it. And it had a little bit of success. It was successful for me at the time. it was like every other video on my channel had like 30 or 40 views, and suddenly there was one that had like 30-40,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, it was just suddenly like, what is this? Maybe there's something here. And I tried to Kickstart it, didn't work. I ended up making another feature called Animosity, and it did well. And for the follow-up, I just couldn't stop thinking about VelociPastor. It just like I just kept having more ideas for it. And after a while, and I was like a serious film school guy, so I kept trying to push it away. And after a while, I was just like, I have to do this. It's been like 5 years. Obviously, my brain wants to do this. So I just followed it from there. And yeah, that was the basic genesis of it.
So when was it filmed? About 2-3 years ago, I think, was it?
2016 we wrapped, and shot for like 14, 15 days, something like that. Maybe 12 or 13. It was a quick shoot. And yeah, like 4 or 5 months of post after that. We premiered in 2017.
So, and since then it's been, because I know it's been gaining hits, and you've been at a number of festivals and screenings, that sort of thing. So in terms of is it strange you've done something that lasted 12, 13? I know that the concept has been there for a few years, but you spend 12, 13 days on something 3 or 4 years ago, and now you're still talking about it. Is that a weird, strange thing? When
it is. It's a little surreal, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like you kind of. I've been getting more and more used to the fact that people respond to your art after the fact.
Yeah.
Especially with film, it's not like you're playing a concert and people clap. It's sort of like you make a thing, and I don't know, a year or so later is when people are finally going to see it. But it's interesting. Like there are some people that'll still talk to me about Animosity, and I made that film back in 2014.
Yeah.
So it's like it is strange though. It's a strange disconnect. I think that there are moments that you sort of honestly, for me, there's moments that I'm like worried that I'm not remembering it.
Or making things up.
yeah. Like I told myself the narrative of how it was shot so many times that I might just be, because in my memory the shoot was so smooth and fun.
Yeah.
But that was also 3 years ago.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that were difficult that I think.
But we do that, don't we? We kind of, I mean, in my day job, I'm a college lecturer, so I will tell certain stories and so forth. And it's got to the point now where I know I'm telling stories, but sometimes around a subject, I'm thinking, I'm sure I made this up at some point, but now I don't really know. It could be my life. I don't know.
It is exactly that. And it's like, I mean, like, I remember it very well, so it would just be small details. But it is interesting, and it is funny to just remember. 3 years is a long time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that's happened in my life since then. So it's just interesting to like remember back to when you were filming. It's cool.
How much did it cost to make, if I may ask?
$35,000.
Right. Okay. I mean, so. As I say, I've enjoyed it, and I've looked at quite a lot of feedback, and lots of people, really enjoy it. I think is it Greg Cohen? Cohen plays a lead. He's really good. I mean, really owns the part, doesn't he? Really good.
I completely agree. He's like, I tell people he's the only other person that gets the film even more than me. Like casting him was the best decision I made, I think.
Did you worry that people wouldn't get the film? Did you worry that people may think, is it being purposely this way, or because I think you're quite self-aware in this, and I think you kind of are aware that this is a great fun piece, but it's ridiculous in a way. So I mean, I mean that in a good way. Did you worry that people
taking
would
them as compliments?
Good. Did you worry that people may misinterpret what you were trying to do, or?
Yeah, constantly. I like. It's funny because it was a very smooth shoot. It was like nothing went wrong, which is just what you prepare for every shoot for everything to explode in your face and for the camera to catch on fire. None of that happened. So the only challenge of the shoot for me was that I was the central question was one of tone, and the
Yeah.
tonal question was, how bad is just bad? Like, how bad can you push it until people either are bored and just aren't connecting with the movie on any level and
Yeah.
tuning out, or think you're an idiot? And like, it's funny. The scene, actually, the sex scene between the two leads,
Right.
was sort of my way to combat that, because I thought it would be a good idea if there was like one scene in the movie that I sort of showed my hand and I was like, no, but guys, we know what we're doing. And I thought it would be funny if it was the sex scene, because there's so many sort of obvious puerile jokes you can go for.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like, what if it's the one scene in the movie that we play totally straight and we like make the hell out of it?
That caught me by surprise, because you've got all this madness and humor and everything else, and then suddenly you've got this just very, very nice romantic sort of sex scene, sort of, and with no nudity or anything. It's all tastefully done and all this stuff. And it's like, just, wait a minute, what's this?
Well, and that was kind of the intention, was that like, I'm so happy with that scene, how that scene turned out. I love that scene, but I'm not gonna lie, there was a tiny bit of fear in it, because I was sort of like, this is where we have to show that we're good, because if we don't do that at least once during the movie, people might not understand how much of it was intentional. I think that they would get that it's supposed to be funny, but I wasn't sure how much credit they would give us. So it was, I love how that scene turned out, and it was very intentional to play it quite straight and quite sweetly, in comparison to much of the rest of it.
Well, I'll say, in contrast to probably my favourite sequence was the sorry, I was just laughing because I was thinking about when I watched it. The Vietnam sequence is it's like,
that is my favourite sequence in the movie. I've seen this movie so many times at different festivals now, and that's the one scene I'm like, I gotta be there for Vietnam.
I will tell you the bit where, and then again, if people haven't seen this, it might be a spoiler. I don't know how you feel, but what the hell, when his girlfriend comes and she trips over the landmine, which is that's not a funny thing, but I was drinking a cup of coffee, and I literally did that cartoon.
Perfect. That's also, I think that's like our only moment of CGI in the movie.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh no, we have like one or two muzzle flashes at the very beginning, but like, that was the only like effects shot in terms of CGI, and I was when it came back from the effects artist, I was dying. It was just so funny. Thank you. I adore that.
Genuinely love that part. I mean, in terms of the whole film, it was a low amount of money that you obviously had to spend. If you had the chance to go back and do it again, would you do it very differently? And so, throw money at effects or whatever, or is it a piece, that's it, it's done, I don't want to ever touch that again,
It's sort of somewhere in the middle. I'm very happy with how it turned out. There isn't much I would change. I think if I had a little more money, I would have made it maybe a little bloodier. But it's sort of like that. That's the movie I wanted.
Yeah.
I am very happy with it. But I will say that I think that it's important, especially in film, where you can just sort of endlessly iterate on footage. Like, once again, it's not a live performance. It's like you have to. I've known people that have shot films and they just never show them anywhere because they spend the next 5-6 years mercilessly tweaking and editing them until it's just sort of like you sort of lose the thread of why you did it in the first place. And more importantly, nobody ever sees it, which is the point. So it definitely, I think that with every film, including VelociPastor, there's a point where you just have to be like, it's done. And just move forward. And there will be things that you're not 100% happy with. Or that you wish you had maybe done a little differently. But I think at a certain point, it's just really important for your own sanity to be like, that's just the movie. That's how it's shaped. That's how it feels. And time for the next one.
However, having said that, the again, try not to give too many things away for people that haven't seen it, but the ending kind of leaves it open for a sequel, maybe. And
so, do not get me wrong, I would absolutely do a sequel. But
Well, why don't you do the VelociPastor as it versus my VelociPastor?
Oh my
You know,
God,
honest to God,
it's the monster, battle people have been asking for.
said nobody ever.
Yeah. I also love that the pun mostly works in your accent. And I would just have to suddenly be the sequels in the UK,
Yeah.
and like nobody mentions
Here
anything.
comes a tagliatelle, you know, that sort of thing. So, have you played with the idea of a sequel?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm in the process of writing it.
Okay. Really? Okay.
So,
Right. Okay.
yeah. Well, because remember that I wrote this 3 years
Yeah.
ago. So
Yeah.
for me, I've had 3 years to think on it and stockpile more ideas. So
Yeah.
I'm this weekend is actually when I'm sitting down to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
I'm very excited.
let me know, maybe get a sneak preview at some point of maybe where you're going to go with this. And if you don't use the VelociPastor versus Pastor, it's fine, it's okay. I'll use it myself as an offshoot.
Please be my what's the word, like unlicensed Italian ripoff. It's just, yeah.
What the heck was I reading about? Something about you causing some, was it a political joke or scandal or something in Spain? What the hell was all that about?
I don't know. Okay, all right. So I do not speak Spanish.
Okay.
Full disclosure. So this is through Google Translate and friends that do speak Spanish. And so from what I could discern, there was a brief moment where there was Spain a couple of months back had its presidential elections,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the candidates for president was a very far right-wing ex-priest.
Okay.
And so a left-wing journalist had happened to see the trailer that morning, and in like a real article, like a real political article, is typing, and it's just like, I don't agree with this guy at all. And by the way, I saw this trailer this morning called The VelociPastor, and I think this dude's the real one. And so it just, for a brief moment, we were just a political meme in Spain. And so like my Twitter timeline was just lighting up with all I couldn't tell at first if it was coming from like South America, Central America, or where.
Yeah.
But no, it was all like Barcelona, Spain, and it was just people talking about the candidate, and it was wild. I must admit, I was very happy that it did not evolve into like a Pepe the Frog kind of thing, because there was a brief moment where I was like, wait a minute, I don't want my film to be associated with a far-right political candidate, or any political candidate for that matter.
I guess so, yeah, I guess so. I saw that you were at Comic-Con, San Diego, a couple of weeks ago.
Sure.
So the film was showing there?
Yeah.
Yep. So, first of all, is it the first time you've been to San Diego, yeah?
It was.
So, first of all, what was it? What was the Comic Con experience in terms of the whole thing? So, I've been to a few I haven't been to San Diego, but been to quite a few over here in the UK, and I love them. I think they're great. How did the film do? How did it go down? And what was your feeling about the whole Comic Con experience, anyway?
Yeah. So I had been to a couple of cons as well. I had been to the New York Comic Con. And found it sort of just a sensory overload in the best way possible. There's just so many people crammed in. And San Diego Comic-Con was a lot bigger. And I wasn't really prepared for that. I don't think the scope of it totally hit me. Like on the gut level. I knew sort of intellectually what... of course I knew what Comic-Con was, but like... I didn't really realize how big of a thing it was. Like, I heard them announce the new Marvel movies, and I only knew that because I heard a cheer go up in the auditorium next to me, and then my phone lit up with all the news stories about what had just happened. The experience was incredible. It was just a lot of fun. Greg and I went down, promoting the film, handing out sort of postcards, mini posters, like, come see the movie. And yeah, it was incredible. I think people really loved it. He got recognized on the con floor, and that never stops being also a little surreal. That happened to us too when we played at another convention called Texas Frightmare, and it was like the first place we played after it like really caught fire online. Yeah. And that was definitely the most I've ever felt like a celebrity. It was very strange, in the best way possible. But it was just like. that was when it really hit me, like, kind of what was happening.
Yeah.
Because there's that sort of slightly defeatist part of your brain that's kind of like, well, it's trending today, but by Thursday it'll be gone.
Yeah.
And just because of the way the internet works, things pop up and leave without rhyme or reason all the time. So when we went to Texas and people were still talking about it and just couldn't get enough of it, that's when I knew. I actually got an email from one of the people that saw it at Texas today.
Yeah.
So it's like they're still thinking about it and talking about it. So
when the film shows, like at San Diego, do you still watch it, or can you not watch it anymore? So how many times must you have seen this film now? Hundreds.
A lot.
Yeah.
Also remember, I not only am I the writer director, I'm also the editor of this one.
Yeah.
So I truly couldn't put a number on it. Like, even just talking, even before we premiered, just showing it to friends, showing it to like fellow filmmakers, people that could give feedback. I will say that so this ties into my previous film, Animosity. It's a really good movie. I really love that movie, but it's a serious film, and it's sort of there's a twist in it that sort of about halfway through that reframes the first 45 minutes of the movie.
Okay.
And if you've seen it a couple of times in a row, you're just kind of waiting for that. And so I wouldn't often watch it with an audience. I'd pop in for like the choice moments, and basically after that 45-minute mark, I'd sit down and watch the movie. But I will say the experience with VelociPastor has been completely different. I usually just can't quite leave the room because people are enjoying it too much. And it's of course crazy rewarding to hear people reacting to it. So I will say there's been a couple of times that I was like just doing other things, but like catching up on work or emails. But I will say that I think like 75% of the time I'll sit and I'll watch the whole thing with them. It's just fun. It weirdly holds up to repeat viewings, which I'm very proud of.
I mean, I've been lucky enough to speak to a number of filmmakers over the years, and some can't watch. When they do the screenings, they will kind of spend more time watching the audience for their reactions and then getting annoyed maybe if, well, hang on a minute, that was a funny bit and you haven't laughed enough. Stop the film. I want to explain what I was trying to do here. Is it a nervous thing when you do that? Do you kind of have to kind of just be a little bit objective,
Yes, and it's also it is genuinely the most difficult moment of making a film is the first time you see it with an audience, because it's sort of like, even beyond any trials and tribulations that happened on set, that is the moment whether you know whether it works or not. And that can be for any genre, but just, in Animosity, it's a horror film. So, you listen for the gasps and you listen for people muttering and stuff. And with VelociPastor, obviously you listen for laughter. But it is, I know a lot of filmmakers that just straight up can't do it. And it is absolutely essential. For test screenings and stuff, you're almost always showing it to people that you personally know. Yeah. And so an audience of strangers is so much more honest with you of what parts of your movie are working. And I've been lucky enough with VelociPastor that there weren't many changes made to the edit with test screenings and stuff like that. Some minor tweaks, but that first time you watch it with an audience is genuinely the scariest moment. Way scarier than actually filming it.
Do you find people are kind of more honest there, or maybe online? Because I know online you've got the keyboard warriors and all this stuff, these days. Have you had anybody kind of, take you to town at the end of it, or have people been generally, being pretty good?
I will say overwhelmingly it's been positive. Yeah. There are, of course, some people that have not liked it. Well, it's. I will also say it's just not a film for everybody. You'll know within the first 5 minutes if you're in or you're out. Yeah. And if you make it to minute 10 and you're not enjoying yourself, just leave. It's just it's really just not. It's not changing. So it's really just not a film for you, and that's fine. That's totally cool. Yeah. There's a big difference between this film is good and I like it. 2001: A Space Odyssey is objectively good. It's a terrific movie. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't enjoy watching it. So it's I'll do it. I'll watch it occasionally to sort of remind myself, but like, you know, it's just not for me. I don't love Kubrick in general, which is fine. Like it's okay.
We were doing
like,
so well until you just crossed the line, man, with the Kubrick hate, and we were doing so well.
Some Kubrick is great. Some Kubrick is incredible, and I think that he's like so crazy talented. But there's just like this. I rarely like enjoy myself watching his films. But I will say, of course, like The Shining is a perfect movie, and I love it. And Full Metal Jacket rules, and the Paths of Glory is incredible.
I would actually agree with 2001. I must admit, I mean, I love Kubrick and The Shining. I adore The Shining. 2001 is aesthetically beautiful, but again, it's kind of, I always felt it's just a little bit sort of
plotting.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I know.
It's
I would agree actually with that.
It's interesting, and it is a capital G great movie, but it's just I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Which is funny because it's sort of sister film Solaris is one of my all-time favorite movies. I adore
the original
Solaris.
Tarkovsky version.
Yes. I like the Soderbergh one too, but the Tarkovsky one as well.
Yeah. I must admit, I mean, Solaris, I love. Stoker is actually my favorite.
Tarkovsky is one of my favorite filmmakers. So like and that's what I think catches a lot of the more horror section of the audience off guard when I talk to them. Is that I love these schlocky like Z-grade horror movies. But I also love art film. I adore Tarkovsky, Bergman, Ozu, Kurosawa. A lot of the Asian directors.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Hiroshi Teshigahara who I think is just phenomenal. And also in animation, there's a Hideaki Anno. I think is like actually way underappreciated as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people appreciate him as like a good anime guy. But it's kind of like, God, his work on Evangelion, I think, is just genuinely phenomenal filmmaking, regardless of the medium.
I mean, that part of the world, China and Korea as well, some great horror films. I mean, have you seen Train to Busan? I mean, that's just...
Yeah, Train to Busan rules.
What a great film. Yeah. But I mean, you're totally right. I mean, I can watch Tarkovsky, and I love... I mean, Solaris is great. Stalker, I watch it again and again and again, and then the next minute I love trauma films. So The Toxic Avenger or stuff. There's room for everything. You don't.
And at the end of the day, there's sort of an artificial difference that we place on them, like one being high art and the other being low art. And there's really not much of a difference. It's sort of like something like The Room, as much as this sounds like a joke, is substantively not that different from something like, Breathless.
Yeah.
They're both auteur films, and they're both low budget, and they're both a very singular view of the world by one person. And so it's like, that's interesting, and we should discuss it as such. We should talk about it and talk about these like low budget films as if they are important art films. And don't get me wrong, not all of them are. Some of them really just suck. But like a lot of them have like, even if it's like a moment of something insane. Yeah. Like, and that it's funny because that a lot of what I was trying to, earlier we talked about how Tarantino was an influence, and he was, but more than any specific filmmaker on the final film, what I was trying to emulate was the memory of watching one of those crazy low budget movies for the first time. And sort of like I used to watch them all the time with my family when I was growing up. And there's this beautiful thing that sometimes happens where you're watching some like real garbage that you're not going to remember. But then there's like one moment that's just insane and it just sticks with you forever. And so with VelociPastor, what I really was trying to emulate was that like that moment is sort of around every corner. Like you don't know where this is going because oops, we're in Vietnam now, and don't worry, it's not going anywhere. And I just love that that sort of what's the word? I guess that surprise that comes with it.
So in terms of future projects, so would you see yourself as a kind of a potentially an eclectic filmmaker in terms of you don't want to just do horror, you'd rather you want to do a whole rich sci-fi thriller, whatever it might be?
I definitely Yes is the short answer. I just love too many film genres and want to play around with too many to sort of box myself in. But I will say that horror is my favorite genre. And I think that it is partially because of the permissibility of it. Like, a horror film has its genre tenets, but they're much looser than something like a Western or a film noir. Like, that's why we can marry it to so many things. That's why you can have a horror comedy or whatever. And I think the big open secret with horror is that there's two important things, especially for low budget filmmakers. One, you don't need stars. You don't have to hire names. Like, some of the most successful horror films of all time star basically no one, or they become famous because of the movie, which is great for my budget range. And the other thing is that you can basically do whatever you want. Like, nobody's looking at it. So nobody's like monitoring it and making sure that like you're sticking to your 3-act structure and you're doing all this stuff. No, nobody really cares. And as long as they enjoy the movie, they're really willing to go follow you basically anywhere. And like, I love that about it. I love that like horror as a genre can still, at least for me, can still surprise me in ways that I'm not expecting to be surprised. Where it'll just like Hereditary is a great example of that. Like, what happens halfway through that sort of redefines the second half of the film. I was shocked in the theater. I had no idea it was going there. And I just remember that sort of adrenaline rush of being like, I don't know where this is ending. Like, I honestly, I thought I had an idea of where you were going with this. And now I'm just like, who is even the movie about? Like, and I love that. And don't get me wrong, that can happen in other genres, but it's much rarer. I think that it's a lot more permissible.
And also as well, I think horror now is going through, I think, something of a renaissance. You meant Hereditary. Some good stuff. I mean, for me, being of a certain age, for me, the 70s, I always think personally were the golden age of horror. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is probably my second or third favorite. Top 3, definitely.
I actually agree with that. I always put it in my top 5 favorite films.
Genius. I think, again, that was a great example when Toby Hooper made that. I think I'm right in saying no well-known faces. There were no big names in Texas. It was like, it's like, who? Even now you probably struggle to name the cast, but it's an iconic film in terms of the filmmaking, the structure, and the narrative. And I think now I think it's a good time personally to be a horror maker because there's stuff out there. I mean, where can VelociPastor be seen now? Then is it available in Europe, or is it just in America, or do you know?
As far as I know right now, we released in America on DVD streaming in like a week.
Wow.
It is a week. So we come out on August 13th here. Amazon Prime, a lot of the VOD sites. I know, and we have a Blu-ray to follow in September. I know that the Blu-ray is region free. But I know also that, to the best of my knowledge, the distributor is discussing with European distributors. I'm dying for a European release. I lived in France and Germany for a year, and I want my friends to see it. Like, I gotta get it to them. So I'm hoping soon that we can have a European release, whether that's the UK or mainland Europe. I just don't know.
Again, this may be a kind of cheeky question, but I've talked to a number of filmmakers who, with the way that movie making is these days in terms of the rewards that come from it, sometimes don't make a huge amount of money. Have you actually made money from this yet? Is it going to hopefully start now?
Time will tell. It's so the way I don't know because the thing is, like, the way that every distribution company works is they pay you quarterly,
right?
And so we signed up with them maybe 4 or 5 months ago, but the film's not even technically out yet. So it's sort of like obviously they made some money from pre-orders, but I just really have very little concept of what, like, if we're talking like, oh, I got $20 in my account, cool. Like, or if I'm talking like, oh my God, like it actually made its money back. So we will see. I'm hoping so. Yes.
I would hope
I mean,
so too,
certainly, it's far and away more attention and press than I've ever gotten for anything.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If ever there was an opportunity to, I
grab it now. I mean, I know this is going to sound like I'm really blowing smoke up your ass here, but I'm not. I genuinely kind of mean this stuff, because I was looking at your stuff today.
Yeah.
I was doing all that legalized stalking that you can do these days now.
Oh, totally.
Looking at your Facebook page and all that stuff. You know, years ago you get locked up for this, but now you can just look at people's.
Yeah.
You know, it's
I know it makes ex-girlfriends very unfortunate because they never quite go away now.
Well, I was looking down and stuff, thinking, I'll have a quick look, and then I noticed that you, besides being a director and a writer and annoyingly talented and all that stuff, you do a bit of music as well. You're a musician.
Yes,
yeah. So I discovered. I looked on your Bandcamp, and there's some, and again, it sounds like I'm blowing smoke. It's not. I generally liked the music on there. There was, a few albums. There's an album I wrote it down, the Mighty Second Place album, which I thought was great.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Cowards, the last track I think on that. Oh, loved it. Absolutely great.
Thank you.
So is music? Right, okay. Is music kind of, because I know the soundtrack in VelociPastor as well were excellent. You know, a nice kind of alternate rocks in there. Is that a kind of just a kind of secondary passion, or does it keep you sane, or what? What's the music?
Yeah, it's real quick before I answer. Do I have 2 seconds to just get more coffee?
Of course, yeah, go for it.
Awesome.
I'll edit it out. It's fine.
I will be back in like 2 seconds.
No worries.
Awesome. Okay.
Cool.
So anyway, thank you. Yeah, to answer your question, so I do both. I will say this. There's a slight difference of intentionality. They're both sort of equally important to me. But I never, like I said, I wanted to never give myself a backup plan. So the real safe, secure life of being a musician.
Yeah,
but,
right.
But regardless, I figured out early on that this one's just for me. Like I'm never gonna make any money from it. So, and whether or not that's even true, I sort of declared that in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I was sort of like, this is just sort of your catharsis space, I guess. Like I write songs to relieve stress.
Yeah.
Like if I've had a really bad day, I sit down and play music.
There's 1 or 2 angry songs on there, I think, as well. That I was thinking, this guy's getting something off his chest here, you know.
Yeah, that was a strange time in my life. I love that album, but it is. So I have a sort of full band called Free Parking, and I take the work I do with them very seriously, but it's sort of like it is more. It's sort of like I tend to think of the split between them as like the music is good or bad, sort of me just screaming out an emotion. Like a song can just be a really quick single thought. It can just be like, I'm sad about not working, and like that can be a song. You can do that. A movie can't. A movie has to be more complex. Maybe a short film, if it's like 2 or 3 minutes, can be that. But like a feature has to be, hold your attention for at least 70 minutes. So it's sort of like the music is immediate. Like I can just sort of churn that out, and I think about it as like just sort of snapshots of where I was at in life when I made it. Yeah. And the movies, they take even one that doesn't have sort of a weird post history like VelociPastor, you're dedicating 2 or 3 years of your life to it. It's sort of like you have to be committed to it, and you have to have looked at the story from every angle and like really thought about this. And so I enjoy that sort of difference between them. Yeah. And I will say that if push came to shove, like I said a long time ago, I just sort of decided like if I had to give up music for filmmaking, I would. But I also don't have to.
Yeah.
So I can just do both.
But if I gave you like the choice now, basically, because I can make this happen. Obviously, I can just flip my fingers and this can happen. Rock God or Tarantino-esque, what would it be? The two, you've got to make a choice now.
Yeah.
Was it going to be?
I would be Tarantino. I would definitely. I like it's because in my brain I'm sort of like, it's even like kind of a shelf life for music and people who do, not always, but I feel like I don't know. Honestly, it just seems less like a lifestyle I would like.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I would like touring and doing things like that, which is why like we don't. We just sort of make the music and release it online, and if people like it, that's great. And it has its own legion of very. We have like we have like 9 or 10 fiercely devoted fans, and I love them dearly. But it's funny. Like I know most of them by name, and I'm just sort of like, yeah, hell yeah, guys.
The personal touch, yeah. I mean, you're not the only filmmaker. I mean, Rodriguez. You mentioned
of course, yes.
He plays. I mean, I was speaking a couple of years ago to a musician, Alex Ruiz, who's huge in. He's done a bit of acting. He was in Sin City, had a couple of parts in that, but is huge. It's a real talented guy, and he plays with Rodriguez. Well, Rodriguez plays in his band, so it is kind of his passion as well, kind of music thing. Yeah. So you're walking in good footsteps, with
I wish I could. It's funny. I wish I could marry them, like, because it's funny. They're just. Because they're so sort of segregated like that in my mind, I never have ideas for like music videos. It's just like they literally just exist as separate arts to me. And it's funny because both features I have ended up putting a song in it that I wrote or performed, and neither one was intentional. It was just that at both of them at the last second I couldn't get the copyright to the song I had in there, so I like had to send it to the festival or I had to ship it out the door. And I was sort of like, all right, use this one I wrote. And so, but I will say, to VelociPastor specifically, the music in it was very important to me.
It was great soundtrack, really cool.
Thank you, thank you. It was they were all friends of mine. Like both of the it's only Matt the band and the Holy Mess that are in it. And they are just phenomenal bands. And I knew it was inspired partially by this another anime reference by this anime series called FLCL, which has like it's insanely good, and one of the it's only 6 episodes. It's basically like a movie, and one of the choices that the director on that made was he was just going to score it with one band, a punk band called the Pillows, and FLCL is just so fun. And it just felt so alive and vital and different. Even like 10, 15 years after they made it, it still feels that way. And so I read an interview with him, and people asked him about the choice of the music. And he said, I don't know, I just put in a lot of stuff I liked. Like, I just sort of liked this music, so I used it. And that was my ethos with VelociPastor. I was sort of like, I don't want to put a song in here that I don't personally love. And so it was sort of like, I'm big on like curating playlists for actors and stuff. I don't know if they ever listen to them, but I will be like, all right, so here's your character arc in like 12 songs. And sometimes they'll talk to me about it later, and most of the time I think they just sort of like, all right, buddy. Which is fine. Like whatever prep they need, they should take. And if that's helpful to them, use it. And if it's not helpful, throw it away.
In future years, I mean,
yeah,
well, exactly, yeah. I mean, if nothing else, in the next few years, when you're making more and more films, it's one way of getting your own music in more and more. Just put your own stuff in there. Forget about everybody else, man. What about the future then? I mean, obviously you're doing this film. You're doing the film. You're doing the publicity for it. In terms of what's going to be down the line, what's going to be happening over the next few months, next year or so?
We'll see. We're trying to. I would love to do a sequel.
Yeah.
Like right now, I am just sort of at that point where, the film is done and it's finally about to be released.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to use the momentum of it to get something else.
Yeah.
Whether that is a sequel to VelociPastor or something else entirely.
Yeah.
I have 5 or 6 feature scripts that I really adore. With varying degrees of budgetary needs. So it's sort of like, if it's not a sequel to VelociPastor, there's sort of a sliding scale of like what I might make depending on the kind of money I get. I will say that I've had this weird idea recently where I realized that one of my favorite bad movies, The Killer Shrews, is in the public domain. And there's part of me that's like, what if you follow up VelociPastor with The Killer Shrews and like just go for it? I don't quite know what the vector of approach would be yet. Like, I wouldn't just want to do VelociPastor again with like a different character, but I just love that movie, and I have some ideas for maybe doing something like that. Or it might just be a totally serious film. Like as we discussed before, I love both. So
yeah.
But I will say it's been uniquely rewarding to do a film that just sort of sparks joy.
Yeah.
When we were blowing up in Spain, there were a lot of Spanish language reaction videos. And once again, I do not speak Spanish. I have French and I have German, so I have like a tiny, tiny smattering of Spanish just through osmosis from them and living in Southern California. But I don't speak it. And so there would be these people just like, talking over the trailer and reacting. And every time they would just crack up at a certain point. And it really made my day. I was like, we're not even speaking the same language. And somehow I made this dude's day in Barcelona. And like, they just seemed so happy. And it was like a really rewarding, wonderful feeling. I love that feeling. So I think the next one will probably be a comedy again.
I mean, like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was just a nice. It's quite a short film in terms of about an hour and 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it's like 71 minutes.
But it's just I just watched it with a smile on my face throughout the thing, and it was just, and that's just nice. It was just enjoyable, Yes. And again, I don't mean in a patronising way at all. I didn't need to think about it. I just let the emotion come over me. It was wonderful,
I thank you. And it's funny. Part of what took so long in between the trailer and the feature film was that first once I decided to do it, the writing process was shockingly difficult. It was sort of like not because I kept getting in my own head about it, and I kept sort of being like, but what am I saying about the cat? Sure. And then after a certain point, I literally, like 4 or 5 years, I literally realized it's a movie about a dinosaur priest. like literally chase the fun, make it enjoyable, and that's the movie. That is enough of a point for it to exist. It doesn't have to be a grandiose statement on something. And I'm so happy I did that. I ended up writing. So after those like 5 years, I started the script like, God, I don't know, 6 or 7 times. And I would get like 20, 30 pages in and just throw out all the work. And so when I finally had that like revelation moment, I wrote the script in 2 days. I literally just sat down, plowed through it, and that was basically what we shot. Yeah. And my thought was just like, if it's fun to you now, it will probably be fun to other people. Yeah. And just chase the fun. That was like the only rule, and I'm happy that people seem to be interacting with it that way.
Yeah, and as I say, I've looking online and the overwhelming reaction has been positive. So glowing, glowing reviews and feelings about it, which is great. Listen, mate, I've taken up a lot of your time. I do thank you for slotting me in between the East Coast and writing again this weekend. Wish you all the best of luck, mate, with the release. Next week, did you say? I think 13th.
Yes, 13th.
Yeah, 13th. So let's get some money made from that. Let's get another film made. Let's get the sequel made.
I want more.
Yeah, do not steal my idea. That's but
you have my word. There will be no pasta in the sequel.
No, seriously, wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future. Definitely.
Thank you.
All right, okay.
Thank
you enjoy the rest of your day, mate. Okay, and thanks for your time.